pleasure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. Nicole, should we do roll call?
Yes. Okay. So Commissioner Altman?
Present.
Commissioner Goff?
Present.
Commissioner Navarro is absent this evening, as is Chair Malare. Vice Chair Wong?
Present.
Great.
Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and open public comment at this time for items not on the agenda.
At this time, if you have public comment for non-agendized items, please raise your hand. Again, this is a call for public comment for items not on the agenda this evening. Nobody is raising their hand.
Thank you, Nicole. Was there any written public comment submitted?
There was not.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any agenda changes?
Vice Chair Wong, we have no agenda changes tonight.
Thank you, Director Cooper. So given that, the next item is consent calendar. Do I have any motions regarding the consent calendar?
I'll jump in and suggest, Vice Chair Wong, that we close the public comment before we move on to the calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Let's go ahead and close the public comment. And now we can proceed to motions for the consent calendar. Thank you.
Certainly, and I will move that we approve the consent calendar, which includes the minutes of July 26th and July 28th.
I will second that motion.
Thank you.
So roll call vote, Vice Chair Wong?
Aye.
Would you like me to do a roll call?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Altman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goff?
Aye.
Commissioner Navarro and Chair Malari are absent. So Vice Chair Wong?
Aye. Okay. So let's move on to our public hearing. Do I just go ahead and open the public hearing next, or is there a presentation first?
Thank you, Vice Chair Wong. We have a presentation. William has prepared a brief presentation for the commission, and we're very delighted tonight to have our Public Works Director, Erica Amon-Smithies, joining us tonight.
Excellent, thank you.
Can everybody see okay? Good evening, Vice Chair Wong, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the public. Very happy to be here today to give a presentation on the Home to Suites major modification project. This is a project that was continued from June of this year, and happy to share our update to it, as well as a revised condition of approval. So, wanted to refamiliarize everyone with the project site. This site is the Home to Suites Hotel. It's at the former Strawberry Patch at the south of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce. It's the rectangular site between the Chamber and the Fairfield Inn. It has the Highway 29 frontage on its west side, and then future Main Street on its east side. The site is about 2 acres, and it's in the Broadway district. So the project description is a revision of condition 40 of the approved resolution. The revision proposes to substitute the undergrounding of overhead utilities with a new condition, and I'll go over the details of the new condition in a further slide. I do want to share the photo in the bottom. That's the frontage of the site, maybe about 2 or 3 months ago when this photo was taken. And you can see that there are two underground utility, two utility poles and overhead utilities on the site now. So a bit of the project history. The site was approved by the Planning Commission in January of 2020, and the applicant confirmed the conditions of approval in July of that year. They applied for their construction permit, their building permit, of December of that year. They were working with staff on the undergrounding condition for quite some time, and they came up with their first proposal in April of 2022. That's when they applied for the major mod. Then we took that proposal to the Planning Commission in June of this year, and that's where we presented the first proposal, which was to underground all of the utilities, which is about 250 linear feet, and relocate the poles to off-site, but it would have added two riser poles on each side of the project. Under the direction of the Planning Commission, we continued the meeting and we went to look for a more comprehensive solution to the condition. But during that time, in August of this year, the building permit was issued and the applicant has started working on the site. So one more thing about the project is wanted to share some of the conditions of approval that the applicant has agreed to do for the site. Number 4 is the undergrounding of the utilities, but they also have agreed to help construct Main Street on the east side of their site, which is the stretch from South Napa Junction Road to Antonina Ave. They've also agreed to provide Highway 29 frontage that includes curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And they also agreed to help the water main extension across the Highway 29 project frontage. So this project does bring more than just the hotel to the site, but some improvements to their surrounding site. So what is the existing condition 40? I do want to read this. This is what they want to change. This is the existing condition, which is all existing overhead utilities, both on-site and along project frontages, and all new utilities to serve the project shall be placed underground. Exceptions may be allowed for surface-mounted transformers, pedestal-mounted terminal boxes, and meter cabinets. And this condition was from a policy from the Brock District. And so here's the new proposal. I think some of you have seen it in the staff report. The proposal is to underground approximately 1,450 linear feet of overhead utilities, underground 7 utility poles, and install 2 new riser poles through a deferred improvement agreement. So the site, the frontage in front of their site is about 250 linear feet with 2 poles. So this new proposal is what we call an oversize of the commitment to the condition, but it helps beautify the highway, and it kind of leverages economies of scale doing so. So here is the exhibit that shows the preliminary plan of the poles and overhead utilities that will be undergrounded. So it starts kind of at the South Napa Junction Road, north of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce here. and it goes all the way down to the DoubleTree Hotel. This length is about 1,450 linear feet, and these red dots here are the poles that will be undergrounded. There are two that needs to remain, and there will be two new ones that will need to be installed. One is on the northwest side of the hotel site, and the second one is north of the Chamber of Commerce. So it's a big project, and the scope and timing and funding of it will be reviewed and confirmed through a deferred improvement agreement. I do have some photos of the poles I want to share. So pole number 1 and 2 are the two in front of the hotel site. These are the usual, I guess, 30-foot tall poles. And then here are the poles 3 and 4 that's in front of the Shishkin property, and then the mini storage. And then as we move further down, there's pole number 5, 6, and 7. And to the east of this picture would be where the DoubleTree Hotel begins. So with the 7 poles gone, it eliminates a longer stretch of overhead utilities. So here's a summary of the condition 40, the new condition 40. Applicant shall underground utilities in accordance to Exhibit A. The scope is considered oversizing. Because of the oversizing, the applicant is eligible for partial reimbursement through the deferred improvement agreement. The scope, schedule, and cost will be determined in the agreement. And just in case if we cannot come to an agreement, the applicant shall pay an in lieu fee of $175,000 prior to occupancy. So this project is a major modification. The modification is oversized commitment to fulfill the condition. And in accordance to the municipal code, a major modification requires a planning commission approval. So that's all that I have. Staff's recommendation is to approve this new resolution. And the applicant is here, as well as the Public Works Director, but I'll be available if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, William, for the great presentation. Shall we go ahead with commissioner comments at this time?
I have a couple of questions.
Please proceed, Commissioner Gall.
Thank you. William, you talked about 2 poles that remain and then 2 additional poles that are going to have to be erected, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Can you just give me a little bit of background on why poles are remaining and new ones are going in when we're looking to underground everything?
I can give you one of the reasons for the pole that's south of the site that needs to remain. It's because it's keeping the poles used for a street lamp, and there's a transformer and power feed that feeds across the highway. So that's the reason for the one that's south. The one that's to the north, I would defer that to Mr. Mark Stump. He probably knows more about why that one has to remain.
How about the erection of the other 2 poles?
Yeah, and I think Mr. Stump can probably give some more information on that.
William, could you share your screen again? I thought the graphic was very helpful.
I will get to the page with the
I recall there are two places where the poles on the east side have electricity they're feeding on the west side. And in those two places, the poles would need to remain. I think the graphic shows that. The line across the highway is faintly shown there.
Yeah.
And then a bit to the north of that, a similar, there you go, right there.
Mhm.
So those carry lines across the highway.
That's
why
right.
we can't go under the highway at this point in time.
That's
How
correct.
about those are the existing poles? Is that right by your color scheme, like the green ones, I believe? Or are they the blue ones?
Let's see. The green circle should be new poles. The blue circles are the existing poles.
Existing poles.
Yeah. So these two.
So is one of those existing? And no, I'm just, unfortunately, it's a little small for me to see and read.
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, this is Mark Stum. Thank you. Thank you, William, for the presentation. And of course, this is a preliminary design, which may hopefully be improved upon once we get into the design stage with professional consultants. So we do have two poles that are feeding service across the highway. Where it shows install new riser pole, it's essentially, well, I'd imagine we would actually be placing a new pole, but there's an existing pole that feeds across the highway, and that's one of those red ones to be removed. However, it has to be relocated due to the fact that it interferes with the new curb that will eventually be installed. It happens to currently sit right in the curb. So it's essentially an existing pole that's just going to be shifted a bit to get it out of the curb line. The other riser pole that will be installed is at the corner of Adobe Lumber. And that's because of PGE's requirement. When you bring the power underground, you can't take it directly down the existing pole to begin the underground. You have to actually bring it over to another pole. And you'll actually see that at the far south pole. I happened to walk that whole distance. I'm making it sound like it's a great distance, but today. And if you look at that far south pole by the DoubleTree, that actually is a riser pole, which is taking the power off the pole that's immediately north of there, and then bringing it over to the riser pole for the purpose of taking it down the pole and underground. And that's, for whatever reason, it's a PGE policy that it cannot go down the existing pole that is used for carrying the power. And I'm sure it makes sense from a technical and engineering point of view. From a layman's point of view, I don't understand why you can't just go straight down that existing pole, but it's just the way it has to be done.
Right.
And so my hope is that providing that the Planning Commission approves the modification and we come to terms on a deferred improvement agreement, then we can get going on some preliminary design work with Dry Utilities design engineer firm to get maybe a better idea of how to do this and actually improve upon it, and then perhaps end up with not having to put that additional riser pole. I don't know that yet, but from my perspective, this is a very achievable plan. I know there's going to be complications along the way that I'm not anticipating, but it's very doable, and I think it would do have a tremendous impact on improving that whole corridor all the way up, essentially to, where does it take it, where it's underground. So it'll be going underground from south of the DoubleTree up to near, I think, the Holiday Express. And if you actually walk that line, I'm amazed that I don't know how these poles actually support. There's the magnitude of the power lines, and it's not just PG&E. There's also AT&T and Comcast that are on the lines, and you'll see that some of them are a bit kimbo, but it's some pretty impressive heavy power that goes there. It's not the typical light feed power lines that are easy to put underground, but it'll do a tremendous have a tremendous effect, particularly since they are so close to the highway right now. It's a tremendous eyesore, and I'm assuming a bit of a hazard being that close. You know, if a car were to hit them or a storm were to push one over. So yeah, if there's anything that I can provide, answer any questions, please let me know.
This is Bill Ross. I think we should open the public hearing, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Commissioner Goff, did that answer your question?
Yeah, they explained the polls. I was just curious about that. I have other questions, but we can move on. That's fine.
Okay, let's take Mr. Ross's suggestion. We'll go to public comment, and then we can always come back to our discussion. So at this time, let's go ahead and open public comment.
If you have public comment on this item, please raise your hand. I see Justin Hamilton Hole. I am going to ask you to unmute yourself, Justin.
Good evening. I think I did miss my public comment. I was on my walk. So where this place gonna be? Is gonna be on the Highway 29 or gonna be at Marikina? That's my question.
Hi, Justin. The hotel, if you're asking about the hotel is along Highway 29. It's north of the Fairfield Inn. However, the entry is going to be from the future Main Street.
And I'm gonna say hello, Erica. Hello, Erica. Thank you, guys.
Okay, if anybody else has comment on this item, please raise your hand at this time. We have a few people in attendance. I will also take this opportunity to note that there was no written comment submitted.
Thank you. That was my next question. Is there any public comment, or should we go back to commissioner discussion?
So far, nobody's raising their hands. I'll make another call for public comment. Please raise your hand. People are being silent at this point.
Okay. Well, let's return to commissioner discussion at this point then. So Commissioner Goff, you had indicated you had potentially a couple more questions. Did you want to continue?
I've got two more questions. First one is, I don't know who can answer this, if it's Bill or if another member of staff can answer. I just need a quick clarification on a deferred improvement agreement, how those are used, and specifically in relation to this project. Is it strictly about the undergrounding of the poles and the cost of that? That's what I'm looking for, is a little clarification on that. I'm just a little fuzzy on deferred improvement agreements.
This is Bill. It would be directly related to this major modification with the time frame for accomplishing this. I would anticipate that there will be related issues in it as the applicant proceeds to accomplish the conditions for the original project and approval. The idea is to get a further agreement in addition to the subdivision improvement agreement that can be recorded against the property to ensure that the modified conditions will be complied with. They run with the land one way or the other, then they would either be accomplished or there would be the in lieu fee made.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question follows up on that in regards to the in lieu fee. It stated 175,000. Something the city presented? Was that something that was negotiated with the city and the developer or the applicant? I'm sorry. And is that fee enough to cover the undergrounding of those additional poles or complete the rest of that?
I don't mind taking the lead. Good evening, Erica Smithies here, Public Works Director. Good evening, Commissioners and American Canyon community. The money, the amount that we provided per linear foot, I believe was 700 feet. And that was calculated based on the engineer's estimate, PG&E, AT&T, and Comcast provided to the city for the Rule 20B and 20A project on Green Island Road. Included in that $700 is also the construction inspection required and the contingency required on the project, so it round up to 700. Now the number may change, but it's a way to lock it in now. As we're finding in some of these in lieu fees, we're not locking them in at the time. So prices do change. And it's the best price that we know at this time for the 250-foot run. We are going up to bid tomorrow on our Green Island Road project, so we'll know real time what these costs will cost the city for just construction, but we believe it's the best foot forward, an attempt similar to what we did for South Kelly Road for the recent modification or the EIR addendum on the South Kelly Highway 29 for Napa Logistics. So it's in line with that project as well. Hope that is your question.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. You know, I had one follow-up to your question. So Director Smithies, thank you for joining us. I was wondering about that in lieu of fee. I've heard you speak at some of the other meetings about different estimates and whatnot that we do get, and how, like, I think we were talking about concrete at the skate park, and we said, well, this is the current price and prices go up. So with this fee, you had, I think, alluded that is there a buffer amount in there against price increases before we actually go ahead and do the work?
That is that contingency. The unknown is price markups. We'll always have that on our projects. They do go up and down. I've been amazed over the last 20 years how asphalt hasn't really changed overall the last 20 years. It goes up during a certain period and it goes down during a certain period. It's going up again right now. So it's the best place and time for today's project. If they were to go forward, I think that'd be a solid number for the next year if they were to move forward. But that's why you got to lock it in place at this time, that what we know best now. But there is that contingency in there. There's no multiplier. That's an idea that we didn't think of, I think, is a multiplier on that. But it's I've seen that on past deferred agreements where there's a multiplier added on interest rate. But I don't know if we want to do that, Mr. Ross. Or we could contemplate that, but that current cost is the current cost.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like we're always hearing headlines about how construction costs are rising, but that's not my area of expertise. So I appreciate the additional context. Mr. Ross, did you want to add anything more to that?
I'd point out that, the agreement, obviously, by its own name is deferred. I hear the concern being advanced. The in lieu fee could certainly factor in some kind of cost contingency. I would again go back though to what Ms. Smithies emphasized. We're going to have some pretty accurate information based on what's happening tomorrow. And I think that information would be utilized in any deferred improvement agreement. But I hear you about the cost contingency. I will certainly look at it, and looking at what the basis for the estimate is, if appropriate, include it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Commissioner Altman, did you have any questions or comments that you wanted to offer at this time?
Sure, thank you. I've got a few. So let me start with, I'm just trying to get a feel for the timeline for negotiating and finalizing a deferred improvement agreement? Is this something that we're expecting in 30 days, in 90 days, in, you know, just before the project is completed, which is ballpark a year? So if anybody can shed some light on that, that would be of interest.
Do you want to jump in on that one, Bill, or you want me to?
I think that's probably more in your area. I can certainly indicate how the format of the agreement would overlay the factors that we've alluded to that will become known, and the timing and construction of the balance of the project.
I believe the fully written condition as presented has the times, like a milestone that they have to start meeting once we approve it. If I'm not mistaken, is that possible to bring that up, William?
I think the latest draft does not have like a milestone that they need to do immediately, but the agreement has to be completed before they get occupancy. So I did talk to Mark about 2 weeks ago, and you know, and he's on board to start negotiating with staff, but as you say, you don't want to wait till the building is completed, and it does take about a year. So I think the question would be for Mark, like how long does he think you know, the agreement would take?
Yes, from my perspective, I don't know how late you want to work tonight, but I'm ready to go. But having done some preliminary, made some preliminary attempts to get some professional consultants involved, it's been a challenge. So we're heavily at the mercy of the availability of design consultants to take on, because that's going to be a big component of, from our point of view, to be able to enter into a DIA. We need to know what we're getting into, and we don't fully know that yet. So we need to engage dry trench design engineer to do some preliminary due diligence so that we can intelligently work with the city on a deferred agreement. Now, I just don't know how long that'll take. I've been very frustrated in the interest level that exists now, and the feedback I'm getting is that this is not a project that is desirable for them for whatever reason. And I think there's so much work out there right now to do projects that are more singularly based. So for instance, if we just went to them and said, it's our property, we're undergrounding, but when it starts to involve multiple properties, and then we need to get surveyors involved, and I don't know what the entitlement process is going. I don't know, you know, what conditions exist in terms of having the right of way to go that full distance. Then there's the complication of design, how much can be open trench and how much is going to be horizontal drilling. Those are questions that we need to become smarter. We need to be more educated on that in order for us to have a discussion with the city. But we're prepared to jump in with both feet once, assuming we receive approval from the Planning Commission to do so. So that's not a very clear answer, but it's the best I can give you. It's in our interest to get to know this as quickly as possible. We strongly want to see this done. It definitely benefits the hotel to have. I think it's going to look pretty ugly if we just underground ours, and we all know the complications of doing that. It actually might make it look worse because of the fact that we have to put these riser poles in, because of the fact that there's a transformer on one of the existing poles that feeds a street light further down the highway. So we want to know right away. But we don't really I can't really specify that we could get it done in 60 days. I would hope that I would wish that we could, hope that we could. I don't want it to go down to the wire where it's coming to near certificate of occupancy time.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that there needs to be some built-in buffer time before that too, because it has to be reviewed and approved by the city attorney, the public works director, and approved by the city council. It's in their interest to start as soon as if the major mod is approved today.
Mm-hmm.
So given that,
Some targets, I'd like to target by the end of the year, but I just don't want to be held accountable for that because I'm not in control of the entire process.
got it. Thank you. But given that, is there a way to kind of put a reasonable sort of time frame of, if we're expecting a year for construction, to put maybe 6 months to have the DIA agreed to as a, if not a hard and fast, but a targeted goal, even if it's not fully approved by city council, at least to have the draft in hand? Is something like that doable, which kind of puts everybody on the clock?
Okay, this is Bill. Can I comment?
Sure.
Okay. I'm not sure my mic's on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay. All right. There's, I'm going to try and sound objective here. All right. I think there has to be some deference to the applicant. But again, this is in the context of what I'm going to call, I think it's fairly complicated about undergrounding rules, ones that exist right now, which would be 20 A and B, plus an electrical rate order that's applicable to PG&E, Southern California Edison, and I can't recall what San Diego Gas and Electric is called now. Though that, so when William He says, PG&E policy, please recognize that there's an inherent contradiction here. Is, PG&E has already agreed in their electrical rate modifications for undergrounding to accomplish undergrounding. So to the extent that this rule about, policy is coming forward, I'm not so sure that benefits anybody. As a part of that process, though, before the PUC, PG&E is periodically required to update their costs of undergrounding, which relates to this trenching obligation that's the subject of the major modification. Contractors that are going to do the work look at that, because that sets, basically a high water mark for what they can charge. So there is a dynamic here. I'm going to answer the question. Is it within the power of the commission to say, to set a time period for which this is to be accomplished? My view would be yes. Question is, what's reasonable? And I'm not going to get into a discussion about what's reasonable with PG&E, but it seems to me that 180 days would be reasonable in this situation. Now, bear in mind, yes, you have that power. Whether it will have any impact as to, I was going to say expediting, but facilitating the satisfaction of this condition and the accomplishment of a deferred improvement agreement, I'm going to say, and I think Erica would say the same thing, I don't know, right? But in my view, it doesn't hurt. And it may help. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
If I could just weigh in on that. My concern is I don't want it to be where just, we want to move fast. So I hope you understand that, but I just don't want it to be where certain things are not able to be accomplished because there's a third party that is causing the delay. And so I don't want to be in a position where we as a developer are forced to pay the in lieu fee, which accomplishes really nothing, because I can't see this happening, the undergrounding of these utilities happening in front of the storage facility, the Shishkin property, the Fairfield, or Kelby's Junction, until those properties are redeveloped. Well, when will that be? I can't see it happening in several decades. So we just don't want to be in a position where the developer is kind of backed into a corner now, has no option other than to pay the in lieu fee. So I'm fine with a timeline condition, provided that there's also an added condition that has some sort of review at that point. And maybe that, I don't know how the process works, but maybe that's a matter of, if we're not able to meet that timeline, that we get on the agenda before the Planning Commission, explain why. And if we have a reasonable reason that the Planning Commission can accept, then the clock, it can be advanced, another 30 days, another 60 days or whatever.
Great. No, thank you. I will chime in and just comment that I think as the, applicant and developer of the project, you guys have been doing the right things. So I want you to understand, at least from my perspective, that this is not I'm worried about what you guys are doing. Given my background, which is I am a surety bond underwriter. So I'm very familiar with subdivision improvement agreements and very familiar with public works construction. And there are all sorts of delays and there are all sorts of issues that can arise and can occur and can delay things. And I'm a firm believer that if you've got some deadlines kind of built in, it keeps everybody a little bit more focused and moves this to a bit higher priority than something that doesn't have any kind of timeline on it. That's why, I'm not suggesting initially something like a 60-day timeline. I mean, I threw out 6 months because I'm figuring, yeah, that should be reasonable to be able to get everything done. So I appreciate the commentary, and I hope you understand kind of where it's coming from on my end.
Well, absolutely. No, I agree entirely. I just don't want to miss the opportunity to have this entire 1,450 feet undergrounded simply because a design engineer couldn't perform something out of our control, out of the city's control. So if there can be a mechanism, I'm fine with the timeline of 6 months by all means. I can't imagine that we couldn't get it done by then, but I just want to make sure that we recognize there's the importance or the opportunity here to get everything undergrounded. It may not happen for decades if we don't do it now. So if there could be a mechanism in there that if we are coming up on that deadline, which I can't imagine we couldn't meet, but in the event that we can't meet it, that we can get an extension, reasonable extension.
That makes sense. And again, yeah, I mean, we all know PG&E is not the easiest folks to work with. And we also know that unfortunately, they don't always do things the right way, as we've seen. So I understand your concerns about having things that are out of your hands, and out of the city's hands, having to deal with third parties, PG&E, and then outside consultants to help design the plans. So I think what you're proposing is something reasonable. I'd suggest that if Mr. Ross has any ideas on language for doing this, it would be it would be much appreciated. But so that was my first thing, is just to see about kind of timeline. And then just a question. It's been, you know, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And I think this really goes to our Public Works Director, Ms. Smithies. Am I correct in assuming that the reason that the in lieu fee is based off of only 250 linear feet is because that is the site size that is the Home Suites project, and it's not the 1450 that we're talking about with the whole thing, because actually the Home to Suites doesn't really have an obligation to do the rest of it. It's just that they're working with us in coming up with this proposal.
You're absolutely correct. We actually been historically have an in lieu fee. Village Advantage Ranch had to pay an in lieu fee. I think they paid it in 2020. So I mean, this has been something that's been ongoing with the city, collecting in lieu fees for doing this type of work for their part on their project.
Got it. I thought that was the case. I just wanted the confirmation. So appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, and I think that Mr. Stum actually answered what was going to be my last question, which was the northernmost pole, which doesn't show anything attached to it. Why can't that one be moved? And I think in the explanation of why we need a riser pole, why riser poles are needed, I think that explains why that pole has to remain. And I don't know how much further up the next further north word pole is, but I'm betting, you know, I'm understanding that in fact is the case as well. Because it would be great to get that one out of there, but I don't think we can, given the current PG&E rules. So that pretty much does it for what I've got in terms of questions at this point. So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. I just wanted to make a point to Mr. Stum, thank you so much for looking at this and taking our comments from the earlier meeting and working with the city to have a more comprehensive solution. I really liked the approach that was laid out, and William, I know you've put a lot of work into this, so thank you. I don't have any additional comments at this time. Commissioner Goff, did you want to add anything else?
I'm
okay.
good.
Okay, thank you. Director Smithies, did you get an opportunity to tell us everything that you wanted us to know?
I think William did a really great job with his presentation. I think it covered it very well.
Okay, thank you. Well, that said, Nicole, should we go back and look for any future any more public comments, or should we just go so we can finish this topic?
Public comment is still open, so if you'd like, we can put it out and ask people.
Yes, please. Let's go back to public comments.
Okay, so if you have anything you would like to add for public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Anybody in attendance have anything that they would like to add for this? Going once? Twice? Nobody's raising their hand, Vice Chair Wong.
Thank you, Nicole. So I guess at this time then we can close public comment. And since this is a public hearing, there's no action that we're taking, correct?
There is a motion we need to vote on.
Oh, there is a motion. Okay, do I hear a motion from our commission?
Well, I'd like to request given my earlier comment, if our city attorney, Mr. Bill Ross, has any language that he would suggest we propose, because I think putting a timeline in with some flexibility, and as Mr. Stum was suggesting, I mean, I liked his idea that if they're running up against the deadline, it comes back to us and we can extend or eliminate at that point. Makes some sense, but I don't really have, I'm not quite the wordsmith that Mr. Ross is.
Okay, if that's what the commission wants to do, I think we would leave intact the staff proposed resolution on this matter, but in the motion for approval of the resolution, clearly make it subject to a condition that it's subject to commission review in 180 days if there is no agreement on the deferred improvement agreement authorized or referenced by the resolution. You know, the resolution as it's assembled, and it's, you know, really good staff work. It's internally consistent. It references all the time frames that need to be there. It's subject to all the other provisions of appeal that are present in our ordinances. But if, you know, that's contained in the motion for approval of the resolution, then there's the time frame. It's in, you are basically contingently approving the resolution that if there's no DIA in 180 days, comes back before the commission for further review.
Got it. Thank you. So given that, I will make a motion that we adopt a resolution of the Planning Committee of the City of American Canyon, California, approving a major modification to the Home to Suites Hotel Design Permit, PL 19-0023, to substitute Condition 40 of Resolution 2020-02 with a new requirement to underground approximately 1,450 linear feet of overhead utilities consisting of undergrounding 7 utility poles and installing 2 new riser poles along the east side of Highway 29 from South Napa Junction Road to Antonina Avenue, file number PL 22-0007, contingent upon Planning Commission review in 180 days if the the deferred improvement agreement between the applicant and the city has not been finalized.
I will second that motion.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wong.
Aye. Okay. Well, thank you, Nicole and Mr. Stum. Thank you for your participation in today's meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I guess we're ready to move on to our business item, conducting a workshop to discuss a potential car wash in the Broadway District specific plan. Do we have a presentation on that tonight?
Thank you, Chair Wong and Planning Commission. I'm Brent Cooper, the Community Development Director, and pleased to have a workshop with you tonight to talk about prospective car wash in the Broadway District specific plan. And I have a brief presentation that I'll share with you. Okay. Okay, let's see, do I have the screen showing appropriately? Very good. I'll just kind of move forward. The city's received a pre-application for a prospective car wash at the Fabry statuary site. And a pre-application is an optional way in which an applicant can vet issues with staff in advance of submitting our discretionary development application. We have a very, very thorough requirements for applications. And so this can be really helpful for applicants to vet through issues, answer questions, see if the site is viable for one reason or another in advance of going to all the effort of submitting an application. And so this location is at the southwest corner of Poco Way and Highway 29. And it's about an acre or so. And I have another kind of context location. I kind of flip the orientation of this. Here's the site again. Here's Highway 29. This is direction north is to your left, south is to your right. And today, you know, there are a number of vacant sites, but as we were talking about, the Home to Suites across the street here is under construction. We have the Napa Cove Apartments just south of there. To the north, of course, we have the Finest Bakery in the North Bay, La Prairie. And then we talked about Main Street being constructed. So this is all really in aid of the Broadway District Specific Plan, which was about a 10-year planning process to vitalize this area of town, which really defines American Canyons, particularly to people who are driving through or might commute and not live here. They see the highway, carries a lot of traffic, and so the city has plans and is working closely with the Napa Valley Transportation Authority to beautify and calm the traffic and really transform the area. And we have kind of the starts of it now. And so it's kind of a key location from that perspective. We have Rio Del Mar is going to be extended across the railroad tracks into Watson Ranch, which is just to the east there and is building pretty significantly. The Adobe Lumber site is a catalyst site that perhaps someday will be redeveloped into residential and commercial. And then we talked about potential park site here during the Broadway District Plan sessions. We had a workshop on potential park locations. There is about 1,200 dwelling units that's approved through the specific plan. And of course, we all know people need parks. And so this was identified as a favorable location for potential park. But if not, it has a business park zoning designation, which is in many ways a multi-use, allows commercial, mixed use, residential. The same is true here. This section right along here is zoned community commercial, which is as well as the area across the street. And these were like legacy properties. When we were reaching out to the property owners, the view there was, we've been here a long time, we're vital, our zoning is just fine, just the way it is. So we kind of left it that way. It's a mixed use, commercial, residential, allows a lot of things anyway. So that's kind of the context for this particular location. Wanted to just share with you kind of here's how the property looks from Highway 29 as you're traveling south and you're just passing by Poco Way and you're kind of glancing to the right. You'll see there are very distinctive sculptures and landscaping and such. It's been there a long time. It's a business. Kind of moving forward with a proposal for the car wash. I was showing you the street view kind of from this location here. Here's Poco Way, here's Highway 29. The zoning requires about a 40-foot average setback. So there's a deep landscape setback requirement from the highway. And so behind that is the main car wash building with the exit lane heading to the north towards Poco Way and then curving. Entrance into the site would be over here towards the western edge of the property, and then the cars would circulate around and through the tunnel. And then there's a parking area in here. Not altogether familiar with the site plan, the way it works. We do have the applicant here tonight, and I know that they're looking forward to speaking with you about the project. So that's kind of in general, the site plan. We just received these elevations, looking at other this is a quick car wash, looking at others around the country. This seems to be kind of a prototype. And this would be, this lower one here, labeled as the north elevation, would be the exit of the car wash lane facing towards Poco Way. And the west elevation is facing internal to the site, so that wouldn't be visible from the highway. Moving on to the other elevations, the east elevation is what you would see from Highway 29. And, you know, there's windows and different elevations to the building. And then this is the entrance into the car wash lane from the south side of the site. Looks kind of like the other side, but in the other direction. There's a smaller building internal to the site I have included in here. Wouldn't be visible really from the highway. It's visit view is blocked from the main building we just looked at, but I included that because it was submitted with us from the applicant. There was a workshop with the Planning Commission and Council in a joint meeting back in July last year to talk specifically about auto-oriented uses. And so the purpose for tonight really is an opportunity for the applicant to hear from the Planning Commission about your feelings towards auto-oriented uses, and in particular this location. The Broadway District Plan does have some policies that relate to this subject in terms of interconnection between properties. Since this is really a self-contained one, it really wouldn't lend itself to interconnection with any of the neighboring properties to the south. But there certainly are design guidelines to affect the appearance of the building, and the landscaping along Highway 29 and Poco Way would be, I'm sure, done in a manner that would be very attractive. And then also along Highway 29 itself, there are plans for landscaping and pedestrian and bicycle paths. And so as we've had projects approved, the most recent one being the Napa Cove Apartments just south a little bit, they are constructing the landscaped pedestrian path along their frontage. And this would be something that could be accommodated given the setback here along this project as well. I'd mentioned that the car wash needs a conditional use permit. In the zoning way of looking at land uses, you're either typically one of three things. You're not permitted, you're permitted, and in which case it would be a design permit, and we bring those to the Planning Commission. An example would be the Napa Cove Apartments. We're looking at compliance with development standards, but the commission doesn't have discretion to say, not so sure housing's the right use here, because the zoning says that it's a permitted use. In the case of a conditional use permit, there is a higher level of standard in which the commission has discretion to take into consideration surrounding uses, the location, the way it operates, and really make sure that this is a compatible use, the way it's proposed, and its location and context. So it really adds discretion. That isn't a subject that we had talked to the applicant up to this point. Their questions to us has been more technical. And so given that we do have this level of discretion, I felt it would be a service to the applicant to hear from the commission your thoughts to the extent that you have had limited time to think about it, but I'm certainly eager to hear your feedback, not as a decision per se, like a public hearing, but as feedback to the applicant in terms of if you have questions, if there's issues you would like staff to make sure that we evaluate, information that we can use, feedback to the applicant as we go forward with what we believe to be submittal for the conditional use permit in a fairly short time. And with that, I was happy to turn it over to you. And I know the applicant is present and is looking forward to providing you some more information about introduce their company and their thoughts about this site as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Mr. Balzer, thank you for your interest in the City of American Canyon, and welcome to our meeting. I wanted to ask if you wanted to share any opening comments with us before we go into our discussion.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So I represent Black Point Properties, Petaluma-based developer. We're working with Quick Quack Car Wash. We have the purchase contract with the Fabry Statuary there to develop this site and work with Quick Quack on that. I'm actually here to listen as well and hopefully to understand how it is that we can have a successful concept here for basically an extremely water efficient car wash. That being said, really, Vance Shannon with Quick Quack is the one to tell you guys about this concept, and I would ask that turn it over to him because he has a great presence with this company. They really have an excellent history, and I'll just turn it over to him. I think just for a kind of a truncated, introduction, Vance.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me tonight and for sharing your thoughts with us. As Clement mentioned, Chair Wong and commissioners, I really appreciate your time. My name is Vance Shannon, and I am the representative at Quick Quack that basically shuttles our projects through the entitlements process. Quick Quack is a growing car wash, of express car wash. We were developed in 2004, and we just had one location in Sacramento, and we've grown to be the 4th largest car wash in the United States. Part of Quick Quack's concept is saving, and it's saving time, it's saving money. Those are for our customers, and then for everyone, it's really about saving water as well. We have a tremendous reclamation system that we recycle all of our water as it goes through the wash, and we reuse that. I did have an opportunity to share a little bit more in depth with Mr. He, and went through a kind of a presentation of more of who we are, and I'm happy to answer questions and share more about that. I really appreciate Mr. Cooper's presentation. It was very clear, and it was very well presented. Just a little bit more on water. I know that that's an issue. It's obviously an issue for all of us right now. And while a car wash uses a lot of water, it's because everyone's getting their car washed at a car wash. If those people decided to wash their car at home, they would use nearly 5 times the amount of water that's used in our car wash. We use about 23 gallons of fresh water per wash. And it's a tremendous savings over upwards of 150 or more when we do it in our driveways or our yards. And then that water goes into the stormwater systems as opposed to our water going into the sewer system. They use chemicals and things we're not really sure what they're using, but in our case, it's all biodegradable. It's all environmentally friendly products that we wash the car with. So really, it's a huge advantage when it comes to thinking about water conservation. And that's just something I know that's very important to everyone. And we just wanted to talk about that just a little bit. I think that our project here would fit in nicely. We don't really bring in a tremendous amount of traffic. And the reason for that and the reason probably you see more and more express car washes is because they're passed by, just almost like a fast food restaurant or any other facility that you're just stopping in as you're driving by. And so it really doesn't add a tremendous amount of traffic to any one of our sites. Then the other thing that that's important for us is giving back to the community. We have grand openings. When we do that, we have the first day that's we don't charge for car washes. We have a family or an individual that's deserving that we've chosen to collect donations that first day, and then we double that and provide that to that family or that individual. And we do a lot of different things like that, and that's the local part. We do lots of it on a national basis. It's very quick, so car queuing never is an issue with us. We have a large member base, and those members go through the wash on a license plate reader, so they don't stop and pay. The building that Mr. Cooper was referring to, that's the small kind of outbuilding, and we call that our quarterback station. That's the pay station. When someone's not a member and they pay, that's where our team members are housed, and where they collect the fees on those folks that don't have a membership. Those that have a membership, the gate opens up, they drive through, and once they get in the wash, it's 3 minutes through the wash. So it's very efficient and very quick to get the queuing through. And we have significant queuing in this particular location. So I think for all those reasons, we would fit in very well. Our building's dynamic. It's a very attractive building. As Mr. Cooper said, it is a brand, and we've worked toward it. You might find a few buildings out there that don't look exactly like it. Every time I hear about them, it's never the one that we built. It's one that we took over. So we've just kind of turned it into something that we feel is as close as we can to our brand. But we're very proud of our brand, and we want to bring that forward so that when people are passing by and they see it, they know what it is, and they realize that's where they get their car washed. And really, that's just a short kind of version of some of the things that we do. But I think more than that, I would like to ask questions or answer your questions, or have you ask me questions and kind of go through your thoughts and feelings about the project in general.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shannon and Mr. Valser, for your introductory remarks. I think it would be appropriate to go ahead and open it up for commissioner comments. Does anyone, Commissioner Altman or Goff, would one of you like to start?
We'll go ahead and start. I have a couple.
Okay.
I just want to clarify about the fresh water per wash. There was a gallon number. I forgot what it was, 15 or 18 or something like that. Do you not use gray water in this at all? Recycled water?
We have yet to use recycled water, but we understand it's available, and we are very interested in bringing it to the property, certainly using it for landscaping and toilet flushing. And actually, we have our engineering team currently researching how we can maybe introduce that actually into the wash itself. We have a 4,500 gallon system. It's 3 tanks that the water goes through before it gets anywhere into our system. And then part of that goes off to a reverse osmosis system. And that piece is for our final wash. And that's why you see that 23 gallons of water, because it's fresh water being used for that final rinse, I should say, after the car's gone through the wash. So we ultimately will use 23 gallons of water. All of that, including that 23 that was fresh, is recycled back through again, and so forth and so on. But we are looking into, our engineers are looking carefully. We have an extensive system, and we're very proud of it. And it's a kind of a new thing for us to consider how we could possibly filter this other water in addition to the filtration that we're already doing that's non-potable for a couple reasons, but we're looking at it, and if we can do it, I think it would be a win for everyone.
So just to clarify, generally the fresh water is just used for the final wash of the vehicle as it exits.
That's correct. Yes, exactly.
Thank you. What are your general hours of operations for a similar site like this one?
We open at 7 and we close at 9. And we're open 364 days a year. I think we're closed on Christmas is the only day that we're closed.
And number of employees per site?
We usually have about 18 employees for the facility. However, on site at any time are usually 2, sometimes 3. There's an attendant that's working the quarterback station, and there's someone inside that sprays off the front of the car for bugs and degreasing and things like that.
And as you mentioned, there's no extra services for detailing or anything like that in your business plan?
No, sir, there's not. We do. It's considered an express car wash. We do offer vacuums. The vacuums, by the way, are all centrally located. The vacuum motors inside housings. So there's not a canister at every car stall for vacuuming, and so it's very quiet. It's just the hose itself that goes back to the central vacuum. So that makes quite a bit of a difference, but that is self-serve. And if they choose to vacuum, they can. And if they don't choose to, obviously they can take off. And I think that about 60% of them choose to vacuum.
And this one's not necessarily for you, Mr. Shannon, but for Mr. Cooper, that 40-foot setback on the property, that is allowed to be developed for a walkway or bike trail through there. It's like we did at the other.
We could take a look at that. It depends on the right-of-way and some of the other constraints that we have, but it is an opportunity for it. I think we prefer to have it in the right-of-way, but it is a fallback location.
Okay, thank you. And again, just to clarify, there is no exit in and out of Broadway. It's all out of Polka Lane.
Yes, sir. And as far as the landscaping and the pedestrian pathway through there, we're happy to accommodate if that's just the case. And we will do a lot of really nice landscaping in that area. That's, something that we run a very clean, very, very professional operation. Our attendants have white button-up shirts and ties, and we're very clean, and our landscaping on our storefront, if you will, our curb appeal is very important to us. So we'll do a great job of landscaping that area with drought-resistant landscaping.
Excellent. I just have one more question. In your presentation, or when you were talking about your Connection Community Service and how you mentioned that generally at a grand opening, you identify a family, car washes are free, donations to that family. Can you give me another example of some community service outreach that your company does?
Absolutely. I actually have a video. It's too long to play, and it could go on forever, but a couple examples. Last year, we have a 12 days of giving. Last year, we collected about $490,000, $95,000. And of that money, we allow our different markets to pick a charity of their choices. One of them happened to be a children's vision where they don't have glasses and cannot afford glasses, and we were able to provide 15,000 pairs of glasses to children that would otherwise not be able to afford them. And that's just one of several different benefits. One of them was the Sacramento Sheriff's Department. I can't think of all of them. I'm happy to share videos with you folks to show you the more in-depth charity giving that we do. It's what our company is all about. Our vision is changing lives for the better. And we mean that, and we work very hard on that, whether that's people that work for us and with us or people that we can help outside. We do a lot of Make-A-Wish stuff. There was a young man that was very seriously ill. He had his first Make-A-Wish. He went to Disneyland. It was overwhelming because he had sensory issues, so he sadly didn't enjoy it. They asked him a second time, "What do you want?" And he said, "I always go to Quick Quack with my parents. I want a car wash." We built him a full-blown car wash in his backyard. It's a miniature version, but it's not a blow-up house. It's a full-blown building. It's got music inside, bubbles. It's a little dance floor for the kids. It's pretty amazing. We had to get variances with planning because it was on the property line, and they were happy to accommodate us. So it was a really neat thing. And I've got videos I can share, and I don't want to take all night, but there's just, it goes on forever. That's who we are as a company, Mr. Goff.
Okay, thank you. And just one other follow-up, I'm sorry. Besides the car wash, is there any other services you guys provide, or products that are sold on site or anything like that, or is it strictly car wash?
Strictly car wash. We have no retail center. We do have a small little kiosk box that might have air fresheners and towels to wipe down your vehicle. We give everyone a dash wipe when they come in. So, but there's no retail, there's no sales. We don't do any detailing or anything like that. It's all self-serve.
And I promise this is my last one. So with your car wash, is there any, I'm just looking at the location right there on Broadway. There's never any, I guess, mist or anything coming off, because everything is self-contained inside the wash itself. So there's not any type of, I'm just looking at a cloud of mist or whatever off the side of the highway.
Yeah, absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, one of our goals is to get that car as dry as possible, because that's where you come away with a spot-free car. So the dryers inside do a very efficient job. We constantly look at different methods of drying the car, so it's not only effective to dry the car, but silent as much as possible, and those type of things. So usually you'll see maybe 12, 13 feet of just where a little water's dripped off the cars as they leave. A lot of that's the bed of a truck. We'll have a little bit inside, but there's no mist or anything like that coming out of the wash. That end of it actually is the dryers, and there's no water element for the probably last 12, 15 feet of the wash.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. Commissioner Altman, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I've got a few different types of questions, so appreciate it, Vice Chair Wong. A couple of things that I'm looking at and some impact the operation. I'll start with one of the ones, and I'm confident that our city staff have explained our zero water footprint to the applicant, and that they understand that at this point in time, without using recycled water, I don't even know if there's much to discuss, to be honest, with the drought conditions. I mean, I thought that's a kind of requirement for us at this point as a city, not even a discretionary planning committee issue, but I'll put that aside for the moment. And given that there is another car wash in town, probably, I don't know the exact distances, but I'm guessing within a half a mile. It's on the other side of the street. What's the thoughts regarding competition? And they've been a long time. It's a full service car wash, so there is a distinction. But what's the thoughts on that competition? And we certainly don't want to see anybody going out of business because of competition. We want to see more businesses coming into the community, not bringing one in to drive another out. So if there's any comments on that, that would be wonderful.
Yes, sir. So, that's a question I'm asked very commonly. And express car washes is they're not new, but they're newer, and the technology has changed so much that the express car wash is a very effective way of quickly and efficiently washing your car, including savings of water. And so the express car wash does definitely differ itself from a full service, which you've mentioned down the street. in a way that it takes much more time, it's much more expensive, but that is a market, and that people enjoy that, and that the people that probably would prefer to take their car to a full service car wash wouldn't necessarily take their car to an express car wash, and maybe they would do both and trade off. But as far as the competition goes, you know, we have 165 stores throughout the United States, probably 50 or 60 in California. And we'll put them very close to one another, just exactly like you see with a Starbucks or a McDonald's or a Burger King. It's convenience. People don't want to go somewhere these days to get kind of anything but their car wash. They want to be able to be en route to the grocery store, or in the same center as the grocery store, or the food place that they're having dinner, or what have you. So it's all about convenience, and it really doesn't detract. People are going to go to what's most convenient, what they're used to. So we don't look at that as others as necessarily competition, or us taking away competition. We kind of stand on our own for that. And I don't feel like that would affect either one of the different owners and operators.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Next question is, and I don't know if you were listening in on the earlier part of our meeting where we were talking regarding undergrounding of utility poles with the Home to Suites crew, but there are, at least on the picture in the presentation, there are, at least if I'm recalling, 3 or 4 poles that were quickly visible. And I'll put it this way. I would want to see those undergrounded, and maybe even more if there are more that are in the near vicinity, for a multitude of reasons. And I'd like to hear your comments on, you know, if that's contemplated in your site plan at this point.
At this point, it's not yet. I don't believe. Is it, Clement? He's getting unmuted.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, no, it is. We are, well, obviously we don't have conditions or conditions of approval from planning yet. However, we do have pre-application comments. That was one of the first things we did with William and Brent is, you know, seek those comments. And yes, there are absolutely conditions to underground all, certainly power poles, I believe light poles, I take that back, but we need light on the corner, I believe, but certainly the power poles along our frontage, we are conditioned in the pre-application notes to underground those. So that is contemplated in the project, similarly to, for example, the bringing of the recycled water over to the site from the opposite side of the highway.
Thank you, Clement. And I'm sorry, I forgot that element. So yes, the answer was yes, as Clement well stated.
Got it. No, appreciate that. Thank you. My next question really is more towards city staff, because it really doesn't have anything to do with the specific use you're looking at on this property. But as city staff has heard from me over the years, I've been and remain a big proponent of trying to do something in the city, in the Broadway district, that would be I've called it kind of a you know, youth center, basically. But we're a very family-friendly community. We've got a lot of kids in varying ages, and we have a great park network, but we don't have really other outlets for kids to go and enjoy themselves. And in looking at and I just don't recall, that's why I'm directing this to city staff, I don't recall all of the zoning breakdowns. I know you said this is the community commercial, but and there wasn't a slide included here, but can you kind of give a breakdown as to what the different zoning within the Broadway district specific plan are, and kind of what's kind of north and south here? Because I'm always looking for where we can try and focus on doing something that's going to be very kid and family friendly.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. The Broadway district does have quite a few different zoning districts for a variety of uses. The corridor historically has allowed a wide variety of uses, and the philosophy that we inherited the last 15, 20 years is we don't know what the market wants, so we'll just let anything go anywhere. And you can kind of see some of the consequence of that where you kind of get anything anywhere. And so as we were doing workshops on what do people want to see happen, and also talking to the development community, they have a little bit of a different perspective, but they kind of come together. One of them is certainty. So if I'm going to build a really nice hotel, I want to make sure there isn't going to be a mulch salesman next door. So compatibility of land uses was very important. And so we kind of clustered things. So the area where this is located just south of that, we kind of clustered of we call Broadway residential. And that's why we have the Napa Cove apartments there. To the north of this site, there is a mixed use business park designation. And so that could be one where you might hit family friendly businesses. Of course, the government doesn't build them unless it's part of the parks program. These are private properties. These are investors that want to risk their money on American Canyon because it meets the right demographics and there's a need and so on and so on. But that's really a private sector decision. The zoning to the north allows for a wide variety of uses. And in fact, just north of there is a closed bowling alley, which longtime residents might remember going to, but obviously it's not still a bowling alley today in use because I guess the market wasn't for it. But the community's changed, and who knows, maybe another one will come back. But to the north of that, I'll kind of answer your question. We have zoning to the north of that, and all the way up to Napa Junction Road. On the east side, we have zoning called Downtown Core, which is also a higher intensity, but also a mixed use. There is potential for recreation there. In talking and going to seminars and talking to people in real estate, typically family type uses need a lot of space. And so land value really becomes a limiting factor in American Canyon in this location, because there are other uses that can afford the higher land values. Typically you might see, larger areas in industrial parks because the land tends to be a little less expensive. But there are zoning designations that do allow it, because the question would be whether they can make a go of it economically. Of course, we have the pumpkin patch, about to open very soon. That's probably our greatest family-friendly commercial activity, right next to Paintball Jungle.
Commissioner Altman, I'm sorry if I interrupted you, Mr. Cooper.
No, I'm done. Thanks.
I would love to add to that, if I may.
Sure.
So, you might not think of a car wash as entertainment for children, but that's the reason that I work at Quick Quack Car Wash. I would take my daughter, who happens to be 9 now, and I won't tell you how old I am, but we would go through Quick Quack Car Wash every Sunday, and it was something she really, really wanted me to take her to do, of all the events and things that she could go do. And in my presentation, I have a photograph I use of my daughter looking out the window in the car wash at all the different color soaps and so forth that come down. We do a lot of fun things. We do not call the car wash a tunnel. We call it a showroom. We have different things like it, for example, at Halloween, there's a video game that children can play and they can see different ghosts and witches and shoot them with water inside their parents' car in the car wash. It's meant to be fun. It's colorful. It's we use like colored soaps, that not that they have to be to get the car clean, but just to have fun. So it does serve that purpose in many, many ways. And it's something that, like I said, I do with my daughter every single Sunday and we'll never forget. And just like the young man that I told you about the Make-A-Wish Foundation, that was his dream, to have a car wash in his backyard because he had so much fun going through it. So hopefully that will share a little bit of fun for the children, and the parents will get a clean car at the same time. And I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the potable water. We absolutely are going to bring it to the property. We're absolutely going to use it for toilet and landscaping. We're just trying to figure out how we can use it for the wash effectively. And it's a big deal. It's not a simple, yeah, sure we can. It's an engineering, that the pH balance and the chemistry, if you will, of the water is critical to a clean car, and we take that very seriously, and that's our experience as a clean car. But we're looking at it very carefully, and we'll do everything we can to incorporate it, because I think it would be amazing if we can. We're all about water conservation, but I think when we think about it, we need to recognize that a car wash actually it's highly recommended by the EPA to wash your car to car wash. So those folks would otherwise be using a tremendous amount more water if we just left it alone and didn't build the wash. So it's really saving, 5 times the amount of water that you'd otherwise use for the amount of cars that we would take through.
Yeah,
so hopefully that'll be a consideration.
Yes, that part I completely understand, completely agree with. Makes a ton of sense that it would be significant water savings, much less water waste, and so on. So appreciate that. And I do recall my boys are not too much older, but they're a little bit older than your daughter. And I do recall them at a certain age being afraid of the car wash, but then actually starting to enjoy it.
It was the green monster for a while, the brushes, right? And that was the fun part. And yeah, so I get that. So thank you, sir.
So no, I appreciate that. So I think at this point,
Commissioner Altman?
Yeah.
May I suggest that we go for public comments now, and then we can come back and finish up any remaining questions you have? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Nicole, do we have anyone who wants to give us their input?
We have lots of hands raised. So awesome. I'm going to go just down the list because people were raising their hands while people were speaking and I didn't get the order. But Justin, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay, I am here. Thank you, Nicole. I do like the car wash, but it's very on time. There's one car wash down there. I think that we need to see we can put somewhere else. I think if we can put one over the new car wash near 7-Eleven, there's nothing there. There's grass there, and I think we need to see if that we can fit that in there. That's my question. Good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin.
Okay. Chris James. Mr. James, please unmute yourself.
Hi, this evening. Thanks for letting us speak on this. So I have a couple of comments. So I like the enthusiasm of the applicant, and I can see that they do a lot of good things in the communities they're already in. My main concern really is the water usage. Even with, these laws were passed maybe 10 years ago to mandate that these types of businesses are supposed to be 60% recycled. That wasn't mentioned anywhere in the presentation, but I was hoping that they would kind of reassure us about that. But the 23 gallons, I wash my car with 1 gallon of water, there's these no rinse things. It would be nice to have a business that come to the city that is, it's called no rinse. You have microcloths. You don't pour gallons and gallons of water over the cars. So my other concern is that this is another exception to the Port District. I was hoping that they would become, attract local shops for local people, not these quick in and out. I know the business is being presented as, taking traffic off 29, quick in and out, and move them on, right? I'd like to see the Broadway District plan, come to fruition, and local shop, local people want to stop and spend money in the city and hang out would be great, right? This is another one of these businesses that are not going to, encourage people to do that. I do appreciate the enthusiasm and everything. But my main concern is the water usage. I can't see how we can improve this if let them go somewhere else where another city has lots of water available. We have very little water available to us. I did Google the business. They look very professional. I like the dicky bows, the bow ties they wear and everything. But I also saw giant ducks floating around. Huge, 20-foot ducks in their business, in their parking lot. I don't think that's very attractive. And there was a lot of fluorescent lights down the outside of the building, glaring the yellow thing at night. It looked kind of garish to me. If you're driving past on a freeway, you would stop there because it's very garish. I don't think we should have that in the city. But again, I think we need to focus in on the water usage of this in the city, and not make another exception for another business on there. But again, it comes down to, we have to attract developers, and if that's what they want access to our the Napa traffic. People going to Napa, they don't really. I'm sure they care about our community, but really it's the traffic going through our city going to Napa that these businesses want to capture. And I'm hoping that we can kind of have some sort of try to encourage more people to have businesses for local people, as well as the pass-through traffic. Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, next we have Beth Marcus. Beth, unmute yourself, please.
Hey, good evening, Nicole and commissioners. I have my next door neighbor, Al Donaldson, here also, who wants to join in on Zoom. So if you don't mind, I'll let him go ahead and give his talk.
Sure.
Okay, hi. First off, I'd like to say I don't think we need another car wash in American Canyon. We have two. You have a quick wash at the Chevron. You don't have to get a full wash at the other one on Broadway. Second, I'd like to talk a little bit about appearance. If you look at coming down Highway 29, we're putting in the Napa Cove apartments, coming on down, and we're going to see a car wash. That isn't really the best image I could imagine for American Canyon. It's not about Quick Quack, it's about any car wash. Don't need it. Don't know why we want it. The other thing is traffic on Poco Way. That's a dangerous intersection, Highway 29 and Poco Way. And you have people coming in and out of the mixed use parking lot across the street. It's a dangerous place. We don't need more cars. I'm also curious as to why it's okay for homes to suites to get in and out off Highway 29, but it's not okay for Napa Cove apartments to get in and out of 29 or whatever you put in this facility. So safety is a big concern to me for traffic. We have enough problems on there, especially during commute times. Another thing that I noticed in the packet was the intention that stormwater runoff on the Poco Way going down and west on Melvin Road to Casare. During heavy rains, which yes, we haven't had much in a long while, Melvin Road on the east side is a river. When it gets down to Casare, it dams up and jams there. I know we did work to try and rectify that, but it's still a major problem. Can't just go putting more there, so when we have the heavy rains, you're just going to amplify the problem. Other things I'm concerned with is the reclaimed water. I hear the discussion on how much they can they use it with the process they have. The start of this year, when we started looking at the recycled water deliveries for homes, that was in jeopardy potentially because we have found enough uses for reclaimed water that we have available now. So if we start adding, do we have a plan for producing more reclaimed water? How are we going to do that? some of those questions I don't have the answers to, but these are thoughts we should have when we put in businesses requiring more water. We're putting in more hotels. People who go to hotels really don't care how much water they use. Generally, they will have long showers if it suits them. We have no control over that. So water is definitely still a big concern. And the impact to residents on Melvin Road. The appearance is a problem.
Mr. Donaldson, 30 seconds, please.
Okay, well, I heard about the yellow ducks and stuff like that. I don't want to sit and look at yellow ducks out my front window. So appearance is the problem, traffic is a problem, and quality of life for residents on American Canyon Road. This is not the vision of what we had, what we were going to develop to be. Wrong business, wrong place. Put it over by Walmart. We've got apartments over there. Those folks there don't have the facilities for washing their cars. Ideal location. If you want to have it, that's not the right location to put it, my opinion. Thank you.
Beth, did you also have comments?
No, I think actually he covered it all. I have the basic questions that I had was water concerns, taking away our reclaimed water that we are currently using that the city is kind enough to give to us. And then, of course, the biggest thing for me is the traffic and aesthetics of that location. I just think you're just adding more and more traffic onto Melvin Road, which is a mess now as it is. And everything is coming either onto Melvin Road or onto Poco Way. And people will not go up on the highway to turn. If they're going to turn left, they got a death wish. And turning right is just going to be a massive backup on the highway. It is already during certain times of the day. So I just think that that's location is poor.
Okay. Next, we have Karen Fritz. Karen, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Everybody's pretty much said what my thoughts are as well. I wouldn't want to look out my window and see a big yellow duck all the time and deal with the traffic that's going to be possibly going on over there with their apartments coming in and then a car wash and the danger of getting back out onto the highway. I do enjoy getting my car washed, don't get me wrong, but water is a concern and traffic is definitely a concern. And again, as someone else stated, I don't think that was in the original Broadway specific plan that was put forth. So serious consideration on this particular project. I hope you all think about it very deeply. Thank you.
And that is everybody that was in attendance.
Thank you, Nicole. Did we have any written comments on this topic? I can't remember what.
We did not. We did not have any written comments.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank everyone from the community who provided public input. I did have some questions and some comments on this as well. And I guess I would ask one of them now and piggyback along with what the other public comments were. So Mr. Shannon, did you have an opportunity to review the Broadway district specific plan? Do you understand what our community intent is for that area? And I would ask you to share with us how you feel your car wash fits within what the community has said they want for that area.
We have reviewed it. I feel like that it's a service to the community. It's a service the community wants. When we build stores, we're very, very careful about where we build them. And we consider not just how the store will do for us, but we very much consider how the store will impact the community. And so we have thought it through. When, like I said, we do build stores because of our scrutiny and our real estate team being very capable of discovering what works well. They're very busy. We had a community outreach meeting in your community for this project and no one attended. And to me, that tells me that there's not a lot of concern. I heard a couple people tonight and I kind of would like to address their questions, but the only people that attended, there was no comments or nothing negative whatsoever. So to me, the absence of folks in the community outreach is a signal that they're ambiguous, and they don't know, they don't care either way. It's not an issue for them. So I feel like that the building will be attractive. It will serve the community well, and it's a service that folks generally like and take advantage of.
So, Mr. Shannon, you said you've already done some community outreach prior to this meeting tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you share when this was and how it was advertised?
I did a 300-foot, or excuse me, I did a list we received from the city a list of names that they wanted us to invite to the outreach, and those are the folks that I reached out to, including your staff.
So Director Cooper, can you give us more input as to who these lists of people were that were invited to give feedback as community public people?
Hi, Commissioner Wong. This is William from the Planning Division. So the list was not provided to them by staff. The list was, they went and did the list as well as the map radius, and they did the public outreach. I think it was by mailers, and we encouraged them to do early public outreach, and the circle, that the radius that they're required to do is 200 feet.
I'm missing your answer as far as how many people were contacted and who they were. It was kind of garbled.
The public outreach list is devised by the applicant. They mailed out mailers to property owners within 300 feet of their site.
Okay, so it was so much just a notice of nearby residents or businesses?
Property owners.
Property owners. And do we know how many of those property owners are actually residents, or are they out of town owners?
There's no way to, we don't know that.
Okay, so for me as a resident, I would not necessarily consider that an extensive public outreach, Mr. Shannon. I mean, I do give you credit for having done that initial outreach, which is common for development projects. But we have heard considerable concerns from some residents. And the biggest thing they border on is the fact that we're using potable water, which Mr. Altman brought up in his comment as well. We're in a drought. We're being asked to cut back on our potable water. We're being asked to use recycled water, which is very manually intensive when it comes to using it on our landscape, because I do it at home. So I think the number one concern, is that potable water. So Mr. He, I wonder if you might elaborate for us further. Since one of our public commenters does live on Melvin, would you know if they were in the radius to be notified?
I could take a look at like a Google map and see how far Melvin is, but I have the list. It's not in front of me, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I'm just curious, but okay. So I think the water was my number one comment. And I also want to bring up what someone else shared. And I actually even saw this on the TV news myself for a car wash in the South Bay about how they're using waterless car washes. And to me, I thought that would be something very exciting. Mr. Shannon, you may not know this, and Mr. Bolster, but the City of American Canyon, we have a climate action plan that was presented to City Council earlier this month. We're a very, concerned, progressive city about the environment, and water is a concern for many of us right now, especially since we've personally been impacted by wildfires. So I guess, Commissioner Altman, I know we had interrupted your train of thought earlier so that we could go to some public comments. Did you want to pick up where you left off, or did everything get covered?
I was just basically going to kind of summarize and I didn't have any specific questions, but my comments in general were, and it's funny because a lot of the public comments sort of were in line. I think the Quick Quack Car Wash is a very viable business. I just have concerns in terms of it at this particular location. I just don't know that this is the right place for it. I'm not saying it's not, but that's something that I would need to be convinced of. And some of it has to do with the, water usage issues. But even if those were addressed, I understand it's an express wash, and we have, and I appreciate Mr. Donaldson. I totally forgot about the express wash at the Chevron, but so we already have an express wash in town as well as the full service wash. We're a small community. We're going to be maybe 20 to 25,000 residents total. And that's sort of my, I look at a city of Vallejo, which is 3 times our size, and I think they have, and this is excluding some of the gas station attached washes, because I don't know all of them, but I think they have only about 4 or 5 car washes in a city that is more than 3 times our size. So that's a bit of a concern for me that I need to I'll need to get comfortable, and I don't know that that's going to be easy to get me comfortable on that at this point. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. I think my final comment would be about the location of this. It's a prominent location on a corner, and I understand a car wash, it is a service that is provided to people. They have a number of opportunities to get a car wash, but I'm just concerned it's such a highly visible location because it's a Broadway District specific plan. I'd personally like to see a business in there that fits more with the spirit of the plan, that's friendlier, more conducive to a downtown area where you're going to walk and you're going to hang out and you're going to spend time, not where you're going to drive off the freeway, go through for 3 minutes and then speed off, again, somewhere else. But I understand, as Director Cooper said, it's all about who wants to invest in our city and their ideas. And I do appreciate that we have investors who see the value of the locations in American Canyon. And it's sort of like that balance of who wants to invest and what their vision is and how we see it fitting in with what we have. I guess Mr. Shannon and Mr. Balser, would you like to share any more information with us, or is there any questions that you would like to ask of us at this time? As you go along further with this project, is there anything that you want to know from us?
I don't really have any questions. I do have a few comments, and to me, it seems like there's a couple of issues that stick out to everyone, and that's water, and is probably the main one. And as I've mentioned, we are doing everything we can to see whether or not we can use it within the wash. And we've already committed to bringing it to the property and using it for landscaping and using it for toilet flushing. We hope that we can use it. We're trying, but we hold ourselves above car wash, the rest of the car washes. And I think that's why we're the fourth in the nation, because we're very concerned about how we wash a car. We R&D most of our equipment. We make most of it ourselves. The comparison of a Chevron or what's called a rollover car wash is it's not comparable. It's just not. It's not the same thing at all. And then so that's a different use from a full service, which is something that's not a competitor necessarily and not the same kind of a thing as an express car wash. So there are three very, very different things, and there isn't necessarily an express car wash in your community. And I think that's what people, I think you'll find when you build it, will flock to this facility because it is a great operation. We're loved everywhere. And it's true. I get comments all the time when I have my shirt on and people see where I work. So it's a great business. It's a great, clean, fresh, bright, fun environment. And you will find that you are providing a great service to allow this to be built so for the community to enjoy and to use. As far as the water is concerned, again, and this goes to several people's comments, we recycle 100% of the water we bring in. We have 4,500 gallons of reclamation tanks that are filtration for oils and for totally dissolved solids. And in addition to that, we have a reverse osmosis system that we take the fresh water through for the final rinse. So we are filtering all of our water. We're saving, by doing that, an extensive amount of water from washing your car anywhere else other than in a professional car wash, and probably a lot more than some of the other car washes that you've mentioned, because we're newer, we have better technology, and we know how to filter that water and reuse it and use such a minimal amount. And I think that we have to focus on that. It's not using more water. What you're doing is allowing the community to save more water by coming to a professional car wash and only using 23 gallons of water versus using much, much more. I know that Vice Chair Wong, you mentioned the waterless car washes. That was a thing of the 80s and 90s, and that is nothing but chemicals. And that's the only way to get something clean without putting some water to it and detergents and rinsing it and have pressure behind those waters and cloths and so forth. Using a dry wash does not work. It just doesn't. And in addition, you're producing and dealing with a lot of chemicals in order to even get close to that. So that's kind of where I'm at with water. And again, we'll do everything we can. Our engineering team is looking at it right now to see how much of that water, that non-potable purple pipe water, we can use in our wash itself. We would love to, but we also provide a service that we're very proud of, and we won't compromise that. Mr. Ross, sir.
Madam Vice Chair, I think I want to reiterate some things that Planning Director said in the analysis for this, and this is pre-application review. It's allowed for in our zoning ordinance, but we're in a stage 2 drought condition. There isn't any variance proceeding for using anything other than recycled water. That's the standard. We understand that you want to relate the use to other human conduct, but we have a specific standard that's set forth in the zoning ordinance also, with respect to this use would have to use recycled water under Municipal Code Section 1310-010. And there's not a variance proceeding for that. So, I understand, like I think the commissioners do, about the relationship to other human behavior, but those businesses are already vested. The city can't do anything with respect to their composition. But in terms of a prospective use, as indicated in the planning director's pre-application analysis, those conditions are mandatory. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. So, Director Cooper, can you just clarify? So, Mr. Ross is saying that it's mandatory that recycled water is used during the entire process of the car wash, or just for the landscaping and the toilets as the applicant has stated? Can we just be very clear?
Vice Chair Wong, currently the city is in a stage 2 drought, and there are ordinances the city has adopted that contemplate this scenario. And so, as the city attorney mentioned, because we're in a stage 2 drought, there are limitations on how potable water can be used. And so I'm just looking at right now, but I guess use of water for potable water for car washing is prohibited at this time under a stage 2 drought conditions.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Nicole, I noticed we have a hand raised because this is a workshop. Are we still, I think we still have our public comment open, don't we?
Public comment is still open, and I was just waiting for you to go back there. So
thank you.
Okay. Beth Marcus, please unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening again. This is the second time for us residents on Melvin Road that has not been contacted regarding things that are happening within our vicinity. Okay, we live right down at the end of Polka Way. It's probably, I know it's more than 300 feet, but I think 300 feet is ridiculous. And I think out of courtesy for the city, they should give residents or businesses within a certain vicinity of that, and not 300 feet, some sort of a notification of what's going on. I don't know what Mr. Shannon was talking about, some outreach. As you all know, I'm very diligent about finding out what's going on in the city. I never once heard anything about a car wash until the last city planning commission, when they had mentioned it. And then when Brent just the other night at city council had mentioned it. But as far as his outreach, I'm just appalled because, like I said, I try to keep up with everything, and I never heard anything about it. And certainly the residents on American Canyon didn't.
Thank you, Beth, for confirming. You were the resident I was alluding to when I was asking William if he knew who had been notified. I guess, William or Director Cooper, can you talk about how this 300 feet distance came into play for notification?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Wong. The city has an ordinance that requires notification to go to 300 feet when we have a discretionary application. Now, this is a little unusual situation because it's a pre-application. This isn't we are not discussing an application that's been submitted to the city. We're in a process where the applicant has approached the city through this process to obtain information that helps them vet what are needed standards and requirements for a prospective conditional use permit. So there isn't an application at this time, but apart from that, I think getting back to the 300 foot, there is an ordinance that requires 300 feet notification. And I think the point that Ms. Marcus has made is she feels that 300 feet is too short of a distance. City Attorney may want to comment on this, but I know that we've talked about equivalent standards. So when the ordinance says 300 feet, there are legal issues when staff takes it upon itself, absent any other policies, to go beyond that, because applicants have the right to a fair process. So if we pick and choose a number based upon what we individuals feel like we're not applying the ordinance fairly within the standards that the city council has adopted in the ordinance. So there may be a fair conversation about whether the 300 feet is a correct one, but for the time being, that is the standard. And we don't have discretion to just decide that we're going to go larger than that. That being said, we do have a variety of outreach methods with newsletters, things that we publish on our website. We discuss all our applications as a standing item on the Planning Commission, as management update, which is where Ms. Marks heard that, the council, inform them what we'll be talking about tonight. So there's a wide variety of ways of being able to stay informed, in addition to the city manager update. And we've talked about maybe there are additional ways in which we can augment outreach. And those take some time to vet as to whether they're effective, but they do need to be all done in the context of fairness and within the standards that are adopted and directed by our city council, either through a municipal code or a new policy or some means like that. But they are not based upon just staff picking and choosing which radius today we feel like imposing. And so for residents, I understand this could be kind of a difficult concept to understand, but as staff, we're obligated to follow the standards and policies that we have been adopted in the city.
Thank you, Director Cooper, for that explanation. So it sounds like this 300 feet is the standard that's written into our city code as adopted by our city council. So if Ms. Marcus feels 300 feet is a different amount she would like to see, that's not really our jurisdiction here. That's more of a city council item.
Well, all of the municipal code is adopted by the city council.
Okay.
They are the authority that makes those decisions. Now, of course, they can be changed, and certainly, you know, there's nothing that would stop any of us on this call or elsewhere from raising an issue to the city council, suggesting that maybe the standard needs to be changed. When you change a standard, you always need to think about unintended consequences, but you don't begin that, I guess, until somebody raises the issue and suggests it. I know that just internally here, staff has been talking about other additional ways in which to augment and improve outreach. You know, we have a manager of outreach. You know, outreach is very important to all of us. So I think we take concerns like this very seriously, but the solution isn't one where we just decide that for this one here, we're just going to pick a bigger number, because whatever number we pick, if it isn't based upon a code, then it's arbitrary. And then and we don't behave in an arbitrary manner.
The only way to solve this, Director Cooper, would to pick what is our city limit, like 5 miles, and then everybody would be included. Okay. Thank you. I am so Nicole, I see Beth has another comment.
Yes. Beth, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, and I don't need to be dragging this on, but I think the reason why we're so sensitive to it right now is because, Tammy, as you know, the Napa Cove project, if I wasn't paying attention to what was going on at Planning Commission, we as residents on Melvin Road would not have known about the Napa Cove project. It seemed like it was pushed through so quickly, and yet the supposedly residents who were within 300 feet of this project was contacted, and they were not. They were supposedly received a letter in September. Some of them didn't receive letters until December, and some of them didn't receive any letters at all. So this is really fresh in our mind right now, and that's the reason why I keep bringing it up.
Thank you, Beth. So Director Cooper, I have a question. So Beth brought up an interesting question about how some residents theoretically in the notification area, they don't recall getting a letter. So let me just play devil's advocate. So is the notification going out, that's more the goodwill, right? We have trust that the applicant took the list and diligently, got the letters to the post office and we rely on the post office to deliver them? Or is the notification something that the city mails?
So there is a council resolution that encourages applicants to reach out to residents in advance of a project. It also says that staff will also reach out early in the process to inform residents, and that was accomplished in the case of Napa Cove, even though this isn't the agenda item tonight. But whether it's Napa Cove or any other application, it is been and has been for routine for many years to send out letters to property owners within 300 feet. Now, we all get a lot of stuff. I can't explain why some people feel they didn't receive something, but I know I get all kinds of junk mail. Sometimes it's even slipped in among, those little grocery store flyers. And if you're not careful, sometimes things might get tossed. I don't know. I can't explain. I just can't explain it. But there are lists and labels and letters that go out to those addresses. Now, what happens after it goes in the mailbox, the post office, that's anyone's guess. But we do, in fact, send a notification early in the process to everybody within 300 feet. And then we do it again in accordance with our ordinance in advance of a public hearing.
So Director Cooper, I understand this is the pre-approval process. So when we get, say using this project as an example, at the application step, the city will do a mailing to all the residents within 300 feet. Okay.
Right, but in this case, I did a quick measurement, to Ms. Marcus's house. It's beyond 300 feet.
Yeah. So, yeah. So who actually is within 300 feet? Is it residences or other businesses?
There are a couple of houses just immediately south. I don't know if those are in fact residents or not. Clear that one's within. I've gone and closed that one already, but they're mostly it's mostly commercial properties.
Okay.
And it is measured from the outer edge of the parcel boundary.
Okay.
But even so, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for, I think we've had a good discussion about the 300 feet.
Yeah. I think within the group that's here, perhaps, there's a sentiment that 300 feet is too short, but there are solutions to that. And that would come from staff being directed to amend the code to establish some different standard.
In other words, time to pound on city council.
So I guess we had pretty much had a very robust discussion. I guess, commissioners, did you have any other need for discussion at this point?
None for me.
Okay, and Nicole, do we have any other public comments?
If anybody else would like to add anything, please raise your hand right now. Going once, going twice. No additional public comment, Vice Chair Wong.
Okay, so I think at this time, we don't have a resolution. So I think all we need to do is, I believe, is close our public hearing, or somebody's raised their hand.
Oh, let's see, a panelist.
This is Vance Shannon. I just wanted to mention a couple quick things before we go. I really appreciate your time, first of all, and all of the comments. They are valuable, and we do take them very seriously. I wanted to mention the Big Duck is only when we open stores. It's a marketing program for our grand openings. It's not there generally. Most jurisdictions have ordinance against the blow up dolls and the different things like that. So it's only for grand openings that you would ever see that. Otherwise, all of our signage would meet with the ordinance of the city. And I didn't get to talk very much about traffic. That was the other big concern, water. Again, we're looking into it. And I'm hopeful we can use the non-potable water. But when we look into the traffic, it's very important to understand, unlike a QSR or anything else that would fit on that property, you will have significant less traffic with a Quick Quack than you would with another facility that could, with the square footage that would fit on that particular property. What we typically see is about 325, maybe 350 cars a day. 50% of those or more are pass by. So they're just cars that are en route stopping in. So we're only adding maybe 150 or so cars a day to the traffic, which is very insignificant for the size of that property. And I just wanted to make that very, very clear that the traffic impact is very insignificant, and depending on what you put there, it could be significantly more traffic than we'll draw.
And Vance, just to add to that the cars you're talking about doesn't include basically what we'd be netting out at once we calculate what the current traffic load is. That's, you're not even, you're talking about a bare piece of land. There is a current business here that already attracts traffic, just to make
absolutely. Thank you very much, Clement. That's absolutely true, and potentially just as much as we would.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon, Mr. Balser, for your additional comments. Do we have any other comments before we close our public hearing?
Anybody want to add anything?
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shannon, Mr. Balser. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and close our public hearing. And I think we are next moving on to Director Cooper and his, and bye-bye, Director Smithies. And moving on to his active planning list.
Oh, thank you, Chair Wong and Planning Commission and residents. I have a lot of update this time. Normally I usually just kind of give you the update on the new things, but I just happen to have a lot of new things this time. On the application list, which is attached to the packet, I'm going to touch on some of the newer submittals. We did receive just recently an amendment to the Watson Ranch specific plan. It's a refinement to the plan, but it is going to require a general plan amendment and a specific plan amendment. So those are important types of approvals that do go to the City Council. It's just brand new submittal, so staff is just beginning to take a look at it now. Let's see, we do have a pre-application for a solar farm. This would be on Highway 29 north of the bridge. On the west side of the highway, it's a L-shaped parcel. It's vacant today. Underneath the solar panel would be RV storage. So it's kind of a dual type application, but it would generate quite a significant amount of solar energy. We have a new proposal. This is a design permit for a quick serve chicken Guy restaurant. Guy refers to Guy Fieri. He is one of his concept restaurants, and it's would be located south of Walgreens. There is a vacant pad that's been there since the center was approved in 2008, and so that's a application. I think William just prepared and compiled comments that just went out to the applicant, I think maybe yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, just yesterday.
This will be coming to the Planning Commission for eventually when it's ready.
Was this the location where the gas station was going to go previously?
No, this isn't. The gas station was proposed over towards 7-Eleven.
Oh.
And this is right south of Walgreens.
Okay.
Initially, when the center was first approved, it was expected there would be an El Pollo Loco. So maybe it's kind of come full circle. Let's see, we have another pre-application for an older building on Highway 29, not too far from the proposed solar farm at 5555 Broadway. There's a very large outdoor area behind the building, and we have someone who is interested in purchasing the property, and they're exploring what kind of uses they could put back there, as well as some renovation modifications to the building itself. So we've had several discussions. Assuming if they do build it and move forward with something, likely there would be an application that ultimately would make its way to the Planning Commission. But it really depends on what the applicant, new property, decides to do. The Giovannoni Logistics Center, this is about 250 acres on the north side of Napa Green Island Road, on both sides of Devlin. There's an environmental impact report for this project. The comment period for it ended on July 20, and the CEQA consultants have been preparing response to comments. We got quite a lot of comments on this. I'm hoping that the responses will be prepared and will be in a position to bring this project to the Planning Commission at your November meeting. At that night, it's a week earlier than your normal schedule. It's the third Thursday in November because Thanksgiving's the 4th. So it will be it's coming up, probably November, December. Let's see, a lot of construction going on right now in Watson Ranch. Of course, we have the Napa Cove, PG&E and its regional center up by the Napa Airport. They have about 4 or 5 buildings. The last building permit was issued. The Planning Commission might be interested in this one because this was the project that will lead to landscaping at the substation, American King Road and Highway 29. I know that our Public Works Director has been working very hard with PG&E on ensuring that recycled water is used. And that's definitely an assurance. Once again, that's another one that is covered by stage 2 drought. Landscaping must be irrigated with recycled water for new projects. And let's see, we're working very hard on the general plan. Of course, we have our housing element workshop coming up, and I see a hand raised. Question?
I'm sorry. You'll have to. I'm having a memory lapse. I heard you mention PG&E and landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
Did they come back to Planning Commission and show us the updates with what we did? Did we have that discussion?
They did. They did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was several months ago now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Time flies. I know, time flies.
Everything has kind of blurred together the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I have a list of everything that we do, so because I have the same thing myself. So of course we have the upcoming City Council Planning Commission joint meeting on October 18th, and looking forward to that. Our consultant is also preparing administrative draft elements to the general plan for update. As we mentioned, this update is more of a technical one to ensure that we have consistency across all of the elements. And we are adding new policies because there are so many concepts and things that that we kind of, I think in many ways, take for granted now that we can include in the general plan. And so it will be modernized. It's not a great effort on a lot of new vision, but it will be a solid plan that's internally consistent and up to date with state law and current with largely current with a lot of the policies that our residents and yourselves and the council would support. So we have a fast track effort there to get that up to date so that we can all rest easy knowing we have a up to date, internally consistent general plan. On the Paoli, there's an annexation application the city is pursuing. up by Watson Lane and Paoli Loop. That's been for a while, but we've had some traction with consultant preparing a notice of preparation for the environmental impact report for that. It was released on September 7, and we had a workshop on September 21st, yesterday. Already feel like a distant memory. And so that's moving forward as well. So we've got a lot of things, that are going on, and everyone's working really hard.
How did the workshop go on the Paoli Watson Lane annexation?
Well, it feels like a distant memory, but we actually got quite a few participants, more than any other notice of preparation workshop before. So that was really great to see. We got some comments, not a lot. It was kind of a shy group, but nevertheless, we did have a lot of people that tuned in. It is really the beginning of a much larger process. So I would guess a lot of people are just kind of trying to understand what it's all about. And there'll be plenty of opportunity for input.
Excellent. Were you done with your review?
Thank you, yes.
Thank you, Director Cooper. You know, I was wondering if I could ask you, this is a little off the cuff, and I hope you don't mind. Since I see we still have some members of the public here, would you want to tell them about our Planning Commission application process?
Well, there we have, I believe, two positions that are up for three positions. So let me back up a little bit. Planning Commission is appointed by the City Council, and the members of the Planning Commission are appointed on a staggered schedule, so that for a 4-year term. And so it's staggered so that we don't have all of them up for renewal at the same time. So it's 3 one time, 2 the next, and it kind of alternates. So this time we have 3. And when in this case, 3 of the terms will expire at the end of the calendar year. And so there is a notification for applications to be submitted to the city clerk's office for anyone who's interested in participating on the Planning Commission. And then there'll be an interview process once the application period closes with the City Council, and then they will select their 3 candidates.
Thank you, Director Cooper. I remember hearing you speak about this. I was sitting in the audience at a City Council meeting, and you said, if you want to know what's happening in the city, apply for Planning Commission.
And was I right?
You were definitely right. I feel I guess I'm drawing to the end of my first term. I feel very well informed about everything that's happening in our fair city, you know, since having been appointed a few years ago. Yeah, so I think the application period is open now, and I think it runs through the middle of October. So anyways, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was just trying to see if I could maybe verify that. I don't seem to be Googling very well today.
I believe it goes through something like October 12th, but we can verify.
Oh yeah, maybe will you be sending out a special notification? Because I know sometimes you do that for Planning Commission projects.
The appointment process is administered through the city clerk's office.
Oh, okay.
Because because it's the city council that selects the Planning Commission, and the city clerk is one of the direct staff to the city council.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you're done with the active planning project list, maybe we should go to commissioner items. Eric, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to pop in with anything?
Well, sure. I would like to wish, because for those that know, the Jewish high holiday season is upon us. Next, starting on Sunday evening, and Monday and Tuesday is Rosh Hashanah. And then the following Wednesday is Yom Kippur. And so I would like to wish a Shana Tova to any people who observe the Jewish high holidays.
Thank you. I will echo your greetings.
And that's it for me.
Okay. Commissioner Goff?
Just a couple things. One's a shameless plug for homecoming tomorrow night for the American Canyon Wolves, in case everybody would like to come out and root for the Wolves. And then just some information that on Saturday night is a homecoming dance in our community. There'll be a lot of youth out on the road. The dance, I think, ends at 10, so just be aware. And then the final thing was I had the pleasure of attending the Night at the Ruins last weekend. Yeah, I think. Another wonderful event put on by our Parks Foundation. A lot of money raised. That's all going back into our community. So I just want to thanks the American Canyon Parks Foundation for that event again, and all they do to contribute to our city.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. I don't really have anything to add for commissioner comments for myself. If there's nothing else, I guess we're ready to adjourn. Okay, well, let's adjourn the meeting. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you to all our residents who participated tonight and other guests.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.